Boyfriend, Teenage Love. Written by Vella Jamar. Narrated by Deja, Nance. Chapter 6. On the first day of school, we met at Trina and Judy's house. Judy always had a good dose of self-confidence about her being, regardless of the fact that she had to wear a scarf on her head due to an operation that saved her life when she was younger. The hair that remained was dark red, and she took pride in keeping it up, even under the scarf. Judy knew she was beautiful, and that's all there was to that. She was a little shorter than I and a lot thicker. She had a very distinctive walk sporting that big butt she was carrying, especially while wearing heels, and she spent what seemed like hours ironing her clothes to perfection. The only thing most people couldn't stand about her was her very loud mouth. It was Trina's first time back without the belly since she had delivered Alvin. She had her mother's bright skin, perfect thin shape, and she too took pride in how she dressed. She loved trying new looks with her hair and thought she was so cute she didn't need any makeup though. She sometimes wore mascara and black lipstick. Then there was me sporting my brand new outfit from JCPenney. I knew I looked good in my dark teal colored slacks with a turtleneck sweater to match. The slacks fit perfectly around my small waist. I was down to a perfect size 7 thanks to Marcus. I didn't wear heavy makeup, but had started wearing eyeliner and Vaseline most of the time for lip gloss. I don't recall what shoes I wore, but remember them being new. I was ready for a brand new year. I was almost as beautiful as Brenda a year earlier on the first day of school when we were in the 9th grade. Her mother had her whole wardrobe whipped throughout the year, but especially on the first day of high school. I can still remember the warm, striped-colored skirt and matching vest that was perfect for her skin tone. Brenda knew how to wear her sharp clothes. Some people wore clothes, and some clothes wore people, and she definitely flaunted the difference in whatever she put on. We took turns running back and forth looking in the bathroom mirror, admiring ourselves. We all looked good, if I must say so myself, as everyone gave each other thumbs up. Between running back and forth to the mirror, keeping our eyes on the clock, and trying to give Alvin some attention, it was a happy, hectic morning. After looking at how beautiful we were one last time, we kissed Alvin goodbye and headed out the door. We had spent as much of the last 3 months of our lives as we could with him, between all the running around over the summer. Now we had to leave him each morning to finish obtaining our education. We walked to McDonald Avenue and waited at the bus stop with other anxious kids. When the bus arrived, we boarded and made the journey to start our first day. When Trina got to school, she hung around her more sophisticated friends. I mostly hung out with my friend named Diana, who was nice, slow, and was as square as I was. Her aunt was rearing her and her siblings after both of her parents passed away. I mingled with Trina and gang sometimes, but they were a little too fast for me, smoking their weed and cigarettes between classes, which sometimes disabled them to get to the next. I didn't even know how to smoke a cigarette yet. Judy hung out with Diana and I every now and then. Other times she was too classy and was with her friends from junior high. I vowed 10th grade was going to be much more exciting than the 9th. I was no longer depressed and had my friends and my boyfriend in place. My self-esteem was up and I was ready to take on a new year. I didn't always have money, but my wardrobe was looking good. Every time I needed new clothes, I rode the bus to the mall to make a trade. I didn't have to attend the beauty shop. I'd learned how to style my hair when I was in the 4th grade and had gotten quite good at it. My grandmother always preached, "Do your best at everything you do." We obtained our schedules and walked to class after the bell rung. It was exciting to see all of the newcomers, which meant freshmen. From our particular neighborhood that included Judy, Andre, and Raymond as we welcomed them to high school along with everyone else we had left at Downer Junior High the previous year. The first day was always exciting, as everyone reacquainted and showed off new clothes. I finally landed in French introduction. For years, my Aunt Jerry had suggested I take it. She was in college when she first enrolled and used to come home and practice out loud her "Parlez-vous français?" She'd get a kick of laughing at us when we'd beg her to translate. I was also enrolled in beginning sewing. My mother had sewn for years. I still remembered her pattern, papers all over the floor, as far back as the kindergarten. Here I was in 10th grade, finally getting ready to learn how to make my own clothes. My mother took me to the fabric store to purchase the required notions. I picked up right away and was able to make the following trips alone. I was enrolled in Mr. Selak's biology class. He was a young, cute, and sexy teacher who loved his job and students. Trina used to tell us about him before we even got to Harry L's. His wife used to hang out at Downer Junior High, but I was never sure what her title was. We fell in love with him immediately. My other classes included math, English, and PE, which were all pretty basic and boring. I got bumped around in math so much it was no longer a preferred subject, as Marcus claimed it was a favorite of his. English hadn't quite taken over yet. There was nothing exciting about PE except sneaking over to watch the dancers in dance class instead of participating in our own physical exercises. We should have taken the class ourselves as much as we hung around. We got a kick out of watching the dancers, totally mesmerized doing their steps. Trina's play cousin, Velvy, was in the class, and they had a real sharp routine to Stevie Wonder's I Wish song. It was amazing to look at them dance. At brunch time, Judy and I walked over to where Trina and her gang met to smoke cigarettes. I always felt out of place the few times I went as they puffed, feeling and looking like a dummy as they blew out smoke. Most of the time, they called me a square. Everybody who thought they were somebody convened near the gym area at brunch and lunchtime. Brenda and her boyfriend were a constant presence as he made his way to L's to have lunch with her just about every day. She lived smoke-free as well, so I guess I shouldn't have felt too awkward. When the bell rung, everyone put out their smokes, wrapped up conversations, and hurried to the next class. At lunchtime, Diana and I combed the hallways talking about girl stuff and things we did over the summer. She didn't have a boyfriend. A lot of guys flirted with her, but she was not ready to welcome the opposite sex into her world yet. We grabbed a bite from the snack bar and sat on the outside walls enjoying the warm sun. Diana seemed to know everyone and whose little brother or sister the newcomers were. As we wrapped up our first day, we opted to walk home. As soon as the bell rung, a flood of kids poured on the front lawn. The crowd seemed endless as I looked for Diana. When I did, we journeyed the long walk down MacDonald Avenue. Judy was on the bus with Trina as they soared by and yelled, "Hey, Tandy!" waving from the window. I waved back as the bus zoomed by. Everyone was excited as we talked and laughed and strolled about. When I arrived home, I kept my new clothes on and walked to Judy's house. She was also still wearing her new school clothes. We gathered around their coffee table and talked about the day's events. We then decided a trip to Olita's house to see what her first day in junior high was like. My real agenda was to see if I'd run into Marcus, which became a ritual. As we passed his house, he was just getting in from school and was about to go inside, looking good with his sexy smile. "What's up?" he uttered. "What's up with you?" Judy responded back. I never did feel comfortable with street slang, said hi and smiled as we proceeded to Olita's house. When we finished talking to her, we walked back home. Marcus was still outside and decided to walk with us to Judy's house, where we did quite a bit of entertaining while their mom was at work. We went inside and he talked about his first day at Richmond High, along with his desire to become a veterinarian. He was looking good sporting his new clothes. Everyone seemed to want to talk at the same time. We kept stealing looks at each other, trying not to be too noticeable. He looked a bit slimmer than usual. I thought to myself as I kept observing. He was playing it off. He knew he wanted to grab and run me to the clubhouse as good as I was looking. It was not his thing to be around a lot of people. We had the whole house until their mom returned from work at midnight. Sometimes, just minutes before she'd walk in, we'd transform their house back to normal. If they engaged in smoking weed, I never did. They had it all aired out or all the company gone just seconds before she came in from a hard day's work. It was nightfall when Marcus got up and left. I let him get a minute ahead, said bye to Judy and Trina, and ran to join him. We talked briefly. I was wearing my teal-colored pants that made me look smaller than I actually was. I told him he looked rather skinny, which he did, and he told me I looked rather thin myself. He didn't ask to go to the clubhouse, nor did he hug or kiss me. He seemed to be preoccupied with something. He was still beautiful, and I felt like I was too. I was feeling really good. I wasn't the homey-looking introvert in sad clothing anymore. I was growing in self-confidence again, and it sure helped to have friends at that very crucial time. We said goodbye and parted for the evening. I went in the house and prepared for the second day of school. It was never as exciting as the first day, but things were still pretty fresh as everyone settled in the fact that summer was over. It was back to the books for those who had sense enough to study. I looked in my closet trying to decide what to wear the next day. I now had a choice, unlike a year earlier when I received only one outfit and had to make do with the rags I'd worn all summer. It felt good just looking at my new clothes as they hung beautifully in my closet. When I decided on an outfit, I set it aside and rolled up my hair before going to bed. I thought about calling Marcus, but decided to leave him alone for the evening, as he obviously thought to do the same to me, given he had the opportunity to at least hug and tell me how much he loved me. After a good night's sleep, I woke up the next morning and met Judy outside where we walked to school together, which we did most mornings. Trina met her crew at the bus stop. Most of the time they were there waiting, and one of their boyfriends would pull up and give them all a ride. I don't think she ever walked a single day with us. All the walkers left about the same time, meeting up at the corner of the hacienda that led to the underpass where we journeyed to school chatting along the way. My first quarter in Mr. Selak's class was pretty interesting. We studied sex education, and since I was activated thanks to Marcus, I paid close attention. I took a special interest in the various birth control methods. I did not want to get pregnant. Since I wasn't on the pill, I opted to learn about the rhythm method. Marcus and I were about 9 months into our relationship, and he had taken total responsibility from the start not to get me pregnant. When I fully understood the concept, I was ready to take on the task. I mastered counting the days when it was time for me to ovulate. I got a little calendar and put the letter O for OK to allow Marcus to have his fun, and I put the letter X on all the days it was not okay for him to release. I checked and double-checked my textbook to make sure. I even took it home and shared the information with Marcus during a spin in the clubhouse. He seemed surprised at first. I don't know if it was because I was studying or because he realized I actually had a brain. As I became a pro at mastering the rhythm method, Marcus did less jumping when he was ready to release if I told him I could not get pregnant at the time. Turning over the responsibility of child prevention took him a little getting used to. Once his ego deflated and he realized I was not trying to become a mother, he got rather comfortable. He saw how serious I was and became so relaxed, he got to the place where he'd simply ask, "Is it time?" when he wanted to engage. I would ask him what day it was if I didn't have my calendar. I then would literally count back from the last day of my menstruation to figure out if I was ovulating or anywhere near it. He would sit in suspense waiting for an answer. If I said yes, he reverted back to his perfect jump. If I said no, he stayed in and allowed his seeds to fall. He seemed to enjoy it better when he in fact got to stay in and allowed the drip to take place inside. Sometimes my menstruation would change and have me terrified that I slipped on counting. Fearing I was with child, I would be so scared until it came and ran the course. I hadn't gained any weight. As a matter of fact, I had lost a couple of dress sizes using up so much energy during clubhousing our first year together. Marcus wasn't picking me up and draping me across his shoulder anymore. I missed our special little fun we enjoyed at the beginning of our romance. He did take on trying to sing to me, even though he never knew more than a handful of words of an entire song, no matter how old the song was. That never stopped him from trying, as he'd mimic along, trying to keep up with the artist, even when the singer was singing other words. I got a kick out of being entertained by him. I loved when he sung to me. He was truly amusing. I saw him one afternoon with a bunch of guys dancing to the song Flashlight while they were walking towards the ever-popular 12th Street. He really thought he was onto something as he danced to the beat, trying to sing and learn the words at the same time. While one of the other guys carried the big radio, he was telling them he really liked that new song. Although the new song had played on the radio all summer, it usually took him a while to learn the actual words. At school the next day after brunch period, please excuse all students who arrived in class after the bell. The announcement came over the intercom due to Evelyn Champagne King visiting our school. Her presence caused A happy uproar among students, making a number of them late. That included a boy who came to our French class bragging of getting really close to the new singing artist. Someone said our PE teacher either knew her or was acquainted with someone who knew her, and that is how she came to make an appearance at Harry L's High. What a treat it was to him. He was still smiling from seeing her before she slipped back into her limo, he gloated. As class settled back down, we resumed our lessons. I promised myself to do better in school that year than I had the last. I went home planning to do homework. Before I could get off into my studies really good, Marcus knocked on the door. I stepped out to talk to him while he leaned against the rail braiding his hair. It had grown quite long as he decided to bypass the barber. While we were talking, Judy came over and asked me to walk to her father's house with her. All she had to do was pick up the phone and ask him for whatever she needed. If he had it, most times he did. All she had to do was go over there and pick it up. He lived quite a walk away on the south side of town from where we lived. Marcus kept braiding his hair, but wasn't about to let me out of his sight. They had a few words back and forth discussing what I was or was not going to do, as if I had no say in the matter. Judy could be pretty intimidating with that loud mouth of hers, but Marcus, who'd known her for a number of years, had grown quite used to it and wasn't backing down. He came over with specific intentions of taking me away. Not quite finished with his hair, he grabbed me from behind, hugging me tight. I still hadn't said what I was going to do. He reiterated while squeezing me tighter. She is not going anywhere. Judy uttered a few more smart-mouthed remarks and decided to walk alone to pick up her money, since I hadn't said anything one way or the other. When she left, we stole away to his clubhouse. At school the next morning, as me and Diana passed Chester and Donnie, who both had older sisters I'd known a year or two, kept saying, "What a nice little shape you have." As we walked through the hallway entrance where they were hanging out during brunch period, "Ooh, and look at that perfectly shaped ass you have," they stated out loud, embarrassing me. I smiled and hurried by. They probably just wanted to do the same thing that Marcus was already doing. They tried to get me to give up the telephone number so we could take it to the next level. Though I was flattered, I was not interested. I don't think Marcus would have appreciated it, though he was probably at his new school doing his own thing. I can't imagine with the hormones he had raging inside of his cute little body, and as attractive as he was, that he was saving himself for me exclusively as I was for him. I asked him one day how come he didn't attend Harry L's instead of Richmond High. He laughed so hard at the thought of coming to our dumb school. It was as though he heard a hilarious joke. Trina said he attended Harry L's briefly during their freshman year, but his mother had pulled him out and registered him as Salesian High, an all-male school. I don't think Richmond High ranked any higher academically than our school. He really didn't have any laughing room as far as I could see. As we got off into the school year, Judy and I did a lot of hanging out when Marcus didn't get in our way. Mona, the lady we babysat for over the summer, moved. I don't know what in the world was wrong with her messing up our perfect setup. We tried following her to keep the $1 per hour childcare going, but she moved too much. We still enjoyed going over there a few times to terrorize her refrigerator, but it was a hassle. She didn't have a car, and we always had to catch the bus or walk back home no matter what time it was when we finished babysitting. Sadly, our arrangement came to an end. We lost track of her and the twins, and we sure missed that money. This has been Boyfriend, Teenage Love, written by Vella Jamar, narrated by Deja Nance.